All right, so in today's video, I want to talk about footwork. I had someone recently ask me to make a video about some of the basic footwork in our sport of armored combat, knife fighting, Bohurt, whatever you're going to call it. And I realized that I don't think I've done this as far as fundamentals. I've done a lot of footwork within different striking techniques and pel work and some foundational stuff, but never gone over like the overall basics. Talking just about kind of the movement of feet. So I thought it'd be a good idea to do that, put something together and share it with all of you. So we're going to take a step back a little bit here so you can see my feet, and we're going to start with shoulder width apart. So you want your feet roughly shoulder width apart. You don't want them super wide, and you don't want them super narrow. Let's talk about why, right? So my feet are really wide, even like a basketball stance wide. Like I play a lot of basketball, like wide's good, I can slide out. In our sport, people are gonna kick your legs out. Especially in a melee, someone's gonna come behind you, kick your leg out. You're gonna be off balance and you're gonna have all the weight of your armor over you. So the wider you are, the harder it's gonna be able to move effectively. Conversely, if you're super narrow, like this is bad balance. Everyone can see that. Like if I get my legs kicked or I get thrown or I get pulled forward, I've got little balance there, right? So shoulder width apart, comfortable stance, usually a little bit narrower than people think. People tend to go a little wide at first, and we say, hey, tighten it up a little bit till right into your shoulders, feet over there, right? Next thing that's very important is going to be to kind of never stand square. What do I mean by square? If you look at me sideways, my feet are not lined up together. I'm going to have them off-centered a little bit like this. Again, not a huge distance. I'm not going to go super wide like this. Basically, the toe of my back foot is going to be at the middle of my front foot, give or take. So about like that. And you can switch it, right? We're not doing lefty or righty yet. Just gonna have that there. So that's my basic stance, right? I'm gonna stand like that. Where's my weight? My weight is a little bit on the balls of my feet, just a little. I'm not leaning forward, I'm not up on the balls. I don't want my heels off the ground. If you've played a lot of other sports, you may be used to being on the balls of your feet more. You want to be a little bit more flat-footed than you'd expect here, and that has to do with weight over you, and has to do with balance a little bit. As you start evolving into different techniques, you'll have more weight leaning forward, more back, and all that. But as a basic stance, it's a little bit like 20% more on the balls of my feet, so my heels are almost touching on the back or just kind of there, but I can lean back on them very quickly. That allows me to feel strong. If I get pushed, I feel like I've got good stance here, and I'm feeling very athletic. Knees are gonna be bent in a comfortable position, right? So I'm not standing locked like this, not way down like that. It's gonna be comfortable. Think of a standard fighting stance, right? So I'm gonna get a fight, you're gonna go like this. The difference of a lot of boxing stands, my legs might be a little more narrow this way instead of wide. Why is that? Again, it's the weight of your armor that's going to be all over you're going to be much more top heavy than you normally are. Right? You're going to have that heavy helmet, you're going to have those shoulders, all that brig. So you've got to keep it all centered. So you want to keep your head over your shoulders, over your hips. Went and knocked my mic off here. Anyways, head, shoulders, hips, knees, feet, all basically over each other. You want to be balanced up like that. So if I get pushed from any angle, I still got that balance. I can use my legs, my core, and my hips to keep me in place, right? So that's your basic stance. That's what gonna be it. Whether when I'm fighting, righty, lefty, doesn't matter. You're gonna have that stance. Now, the question people ask is sword foot forward or sword foot back. So let me grab some training weapons here. Right? So I'm a lefty. I can fight one of two basic stances. I can fight with my sword foot back here, so when I'm out fighting, right? Or I can fight with my sword foot forward. What are the differences? There's a few, but the biggest one is going to be reach versus power. So with my sword foot back, I have more power in my strike from here. I can rotate a lot harder through here than I can with my sword foot forward. It's kind of like a baseball swing at that point, right? With your baseball, whatever you swing your baseball, your arm side is going to be in the back. And if I swing righty, I'm going to my side arm side here holding the bat is going to be back, right? My strong hand. So same idea here is that my strength is going to come from here. So in melee, a lot of times you'll find me fighting with this foot back. Does depend on if I'm on the rail and positions and all that stuff. Sword foot forward is going to give you more reach, and you can see this. Actually, I'm going to do it over the pel right here. If my sword foot is back, I'm just brushing that pel. That's it. Don't move a distance, switch my foot. I can now hit that Pel, no problem. I haven't moved my core, my main, I'm at the same distance. Now I can't reach it. Now I can reach it. So you're gonna get more striking with your sword foot forward. You might be sacrificing some defense. So as a lefty, if my sword foot's forward, it's much harder to get my shield down here than here. So there's a lot of reasons you'd switch, but you can want to practice in both stance, and they both have their reasons and their value, right? So you're gonna be in that stance. I'm gonna fight for right now, sword foot forward, just because I happen to be standing in it. I'm pretty dynamic in both of these. I switch constantly when I fight, and it just depends on circumstances. You wanna train both. Let's talk about movement though. So I'm in my stance. How do I step? How do I move as a fighter? The number one rule is don't cross your feet. So anytime I move, I'm moving sideways, I'm never gonna cross my feet over each other. Ever, if I can help it. There might be a particular throw or a technique or an exception to this, but we're talking generalized rules for most things, which is, I want to make sure that I'm never ever crossing my feet. So I'm never going to cross anything like this. Why is that? As soon as my feet are crossed, I'm off balance. If I were to get tangled, pushed, shoved, kicked, anything, I'm likely to go down. So you're going to kind of keep that stance as strong as possible at all times. When I'm moving, I'm going to be moving most of the time, I'm moving whatever foot is in that direction first. So if I want to go left, or to your right, if you're watching me, so I'm gonna step this way and then step this way to go this way, and if I wanna go back, I'm gonna step back to go that way. So right now I'm just gonna move at a 45, because that's the way my feet are, right? So I'm 45 here to go forward, 45 back. You'll notice that my feet don't come very high off the ground. I'm almost dragging them, and I pretty much am dragging them whenever possible. This allows me at any point in this movement, if I were to get shoved right now, my feet are already kind of planted. If I'm up off a foot, if I'm up here, if I'm taking big steps, I'm gonna be off balance. Again, there's times to do all of these things. We're talking about fundamental movements. So one thing you can practice, it's often called a night step. There's a bunch of terms for it from different martial arts and sports, but basically it's a sliding step. So if I'm gonna go, and we'll go the other way. So if I'm going this way, this foot is forward, it's gonna go here. If I wanna go to my right, and I want to go 45 forward, I need to switch my stance for that step. See that difference, that sliding stance change? So why am I doing that? Because if I try to go to my right and I want to use this front foot forward, I have to cross to move forward. Now my legs are crossed and I'm in a bad spot. So if I'm fighting here, I'm going to go 45 forward, I'm going to slide my foot. If I want to go 45-degree forward, I'm going to slide my foot. My stance is going to switch. Switch, switch, switch. And you can practice that in a mirror, you can practice that across your yard, across your apartment, whatever it is, right? So same thing. Now if I switch my stance, so my sword foot is back, and I want to go this way, I'm going to switch my stance most of the time. Now you can move this step first, and then here, but you'll find it's a little more awkward. And there's, again, times it makes sense, but I'm more often going to switch my stance if I'm moving forward in that kind of sliding step like this. That allows me to keep myself focused at all times. And again, that's for 45 forward. If I'm moving sideways, just literally at a, just a direct sideways, I can step with whatever foot is forward. So if I'm back here and I'm going to go sideways, I can step back foot forward. I can step front foot forward. So I'm going sideways. So I'm going to go sideways this way. Back foot's going to step first, come back, switch my stance. Back foot, front foot's going to step first because it's on this side. Whatever side you're moving to is the leg that's going to move no matter what stance you're in, if that makes sense. So let's talk about going forward and backwards, same idea. If I'm going to go directly forward, my front foot is forward right now, I'm going to step with that foot first, followed up. So if I were to come in for a strike, step, strike, and I want to step out. You can see I'm never crossing my feet, and whichever direction I'm going, whatever foot is in that side is going to go first. So if I'm going forward, this is the most forward foot it's going to go. If I want to go backwards, this is the most backwards foot it's going to go. Let's switch it. Now I'm sword foot back. If I want to step forward and strike, it's now this foot. And it's a foot back. What I'm doing there is keeping that center of balance at all times as much as possible, keeping myself from crossing legs or getting at a point where I'd be compromised by being at a bad angle. Hopefully that makes some fundamental sense to you. So when you're practicing your PEL work, your striking work, you want to work on these movements. So again, let's do another one. So I want to go just at that 45 multiple steps. Step, strike, step, strike, step, strike. Let's say I'm going to go back. So this time I'm not changing my stance at all. They're not switching stances. Why? Because I'm going in the same direction all the way and the same direction back. If I were to go 2 steps this way and then change to a 45 this way, that next step's going to be this foot here. What I'm trying to do again is keep myself as stable as possible. So this way, in your sparring, you're going to see that a lot. You see people fighting like this, you know, and they're coming back, and they're going to go the other way, and they may switch. But what I'm basically doing is making sure whichever way I'm going, whichever foot is in that direction is leading me. This allows you to do a lot of things too. Like for example, if I'm going forward at all, right? So this is my lead foot. As that foot comes up, even off the ground a little bit, as I'm starting to move forward, most of my weight's still on my back leg. So if I were to get kicked right here, swept, I can just pick my leg up and reset. If I were to have to take a forward step, as I land, I tend to put a lot more weight here. This puts me at a compromised position for a lot of different throws. And you can see I'm off the back of my heel right here. I just don't find it to be as good a stance. I don't be comfortable with my movement. So you're gonna move like this, switch up as you move, keeping yourself moving. Now you can rotate. There are times to do it, but I realize it's the same steps. All I'm doing is changing my stance, keeping those feet down and keeping that base. You'll notice that my legs very rarely change their range of motion. What I mean by that is I'm not taking huge steps out, I'm not taking jumping steps back. Never in my fundamental movements am I gonna do any of that stuff. You will do that in real fights. You might have an opportunity to score a big point by jumping in and striking at somebody and getting back real quick. You're gonna break these rules as you get better at stuff. But just like any rule, just like if you play basketball, you learn how to shoot a certain way, you learn to shoot fundamentally, then in the game you might need to be off balance a little bit. Same with sword fighting, same with all fighting. So we're gonna work on that. Suggestion I have you is work on that stance. If you can get comfortable with your stance, that is where all of your power generates from. It's your legs, your butt, and your core. It's not your arms. If you're doing just your arms, you're gonna burn out and it's gonna suck. So what you wanna do is be comfortable in that stance, be able to move dynamically, be able to slide your feet in ways that you'll be able to fight, and know that you're gonna be able to do all that without compromising any of your balance. That way your strikes are gonna land harder, land more effective, and you're gonna be a much faster fighter. If you have more questions on stance, different techniques, things you'd like to see, like, subscribe, follow. I'm Chuck Goodwin, Woodchuck Knight. You can find links to merch on my page if you like. Appreciate you watching. Hope you have a great day.